You know that feeling when someone keeps pushing and pushing and pushing until one day you finally snap? Well, my neighbor thought stealing my wheelie bin was harmless. What they didn't realize was that their own trash was about to become evidence against them. And the best part? I never had to say a single word. If you love stories where entitled people get exactly what they deserve, make sure to subscribe right now. Hit like, drop a comment, and stick around because this revenge was petty, perfectly legal, and unbelievably satisfying, so this happened a while back. Shortly after my wife and I had our newborn now, and if you've ever had a newborn in the house, you already know life becomes complete chaos and no sleep, constant crying, coffee barely working anymore, and mountains. Mountains! Of dirty and APPIES is every single day felt like survival mode is now where I lived. Everyone had their own wheelie bins out behind the houses in a shared alleyway. Pretty normal setup. Everybody minded their own business. Bins stayed where they belonged. Trash got collected once a week, simple, that at least. It used to be one morning I walked outside carrying a rubbish bag, exhausted beyond belief, and noticed something out of my bin felt heavier that at first I thought maybe my wife had already thrown something in there. But when I opened the lid, sitting right on top was a black trash bag. I didn't recognize, not ours. I shrugged it off. Maybe someone made a mistake. Maybe they were in a rush, no big deal, so. I tossed my own bag in and moved on, but then it happened again and again. Little extra bags started appearing inside my bin every few days. Random food containers, beer cans, fast food wrappers. Stuff that clearly wasn't ours. It was annoying. Sure, but not enough to start a war with. Neighbors over garbage is at least not yet. Then the problem escalated that fast because whoever was doing this realized nobody was stopping them. 1 week my bin was so full I barely had room for my own trash. The next week, I couldn't fit anything in it all hot. And remember, I had a newborn at home, but dirty nappies pile up fast. If you leave them sitting around too long, the smell becomes something out of a biological weapons lab. I started getting genuinely angry, not just irritated. Angry because now this wasn't just inconvenience anymore. Someone was literally making my home life harder so they could avoid dealing with their own trash. And the worst part? I had no idea who it was. I'd walk through the alley trying to spot clues like some sleep-deprived detective. Every bin looked the same. Every backyard gate was shut. Nobody acted suspicious, but the trash kept appearing week after week. Then one morning I stepped outside, and my bin was gone. Completely gone, as at first I honestly thought it had been stolen. I walked up and down the alley looking for it, confused and furious. Finally, near the far end behind somebody else's backyard fence, I spotted it as my wheelie bin, stuffed to the brim, like someone had completely adopted it as their personal garbage. Service that I remember just standing there staring at it in disbelief is the absolute audacity today. I hadn't just used my bin anymore, then hijacked it at that. Point I was running on maybe 3 hours of sleep a night. The baby had been crying nonstop for days, and our kitchen smelled faintly like nappies because we physically couldn't throw enough away. I'm not proud to admit it, but my mind went to some pretty darkly creative revenge. Ideas, the kind you think about at 2 a.m. while holding a screaming baby and questioning your entire existence. But I didn't act immediately. That's the important part, because angry revenge is messy, patient revenge. Patient revenge is art, so I waited. That collection day was every week around 9 a.m. And the night before collection, like clockwork, whoever was using my bin rolled it out to the alley for pickups, meaning for one brief window. I had access to it, so that next morning I woke up absurdly early, 6 a.m., that cold air outside. Alley completely silent. Still dark enough that the streetlights were glowing orange against the wet pavement. And there was my beautiful wheelie bin sitting obediently at the curb like nothing had happened. I walked over, lifted the lid, and nearly gagged. The thing was packed with someone else's. Garbage as I could actually feel my blood pressure rising. Months. A frustration hit me all at once. The stolen space, the disrespect, the entitlement, the fact that someone saw us sleep-deprived. Family with a newborn and thought, yeah, I'll make their life harder. Not anymore, so very calmly. Very carefully, I removed every single bag, one by one, and I stacked them neatly along the sidewalk at the end of the alley where all the bins waited for collections then. I rolled my bin back home and filled it with my own rubbish instead. Every last dirty nappy we'd been forced to keep piled up suddenly disappeared into the bin where it belonged. Honestly, it felt therapeutic, like reclaiming territory. Then I went back inside, made coffee, and waited it. Now here's the thing. I didn't slash tires. I didn't vandalize property. I didn't confront anybody as they simply returned their trash. That's it. But what I did know was that the city took illegal dumping very seriously. See, where I lived. If garbage bags are left loose on sidewalks instead of inside proper bins, sanitation workers can investigate them for fly tipping, and if they find identifying information, letters, bills, packaging labels, you can get hit with massive fines. We're talking hundreds, sometimes thousands. That still, I honestly didn't expect much to happen. I figured maybe the bags would just get collected normally. Maybe the owners would quietly retrieve them before morning. Yeah, who knows? So I went about my day. By afternoon, I headed back through the alley on my way home. And that's when I saw them. Bright blue bags. Huge bright blue bags sitting where the garbage had been. Printed across them were words from the city council. Something like litter investigation evidence. I actually stopped walking. I couldn't believe it. The city had gone through the trash, and apparently they'd found something identifying the owner. Probably a letter. Maybe a bill. Whatever it was enough. Because those bags had been officially tagged for investigation. And suddenly the whole situation became hilarious. Imagine being so unbelievably cheap that instead of paying £25 for your own replacement bin, you risk a possible £400 to £2,500 flight tipping fine instead. Over garbage. I remember laughing all the way home. Not loud cartoon villain laughter. Just that quiet, exhausted kind of laugh where justice finally catches up with somebody. And here's the best part. After that day, not a single piece of trash ever appeared in my bin again. Nothing. No mystery bags. No soda cans. No random fast food wrappers. Whoever it was learned their lesson immediately. Honestly, that's what made the revenge so satisfying. I never found out exactly which neighbor it was. Never had an argument. Never exchanged words. There was no dramatic confrontation. Just consequences. Pure, natural consequences. And somehow, that felt even better, because deep down, they knew why it happened. Every time they saw those blue investigation bags, they knew exactly what decision led them there. All because they thought they could quietly take advantage of someone who was too tired and overwhelmed to fight back. But people have limits, and eventually, even the quiet ones push back. The funny thing is, this entire situation could have been avoided so easily. If they just asked politely. Honestly, I probably would have let them toss a bag or two in there temporarily. If they'd bought their own replacement bin, problem solved. Instead, they got greedy, and greedy people almost always overplay their hand. That's what happened here. They mistook patience for weakness, and that mistake cost them. Maybe financially, definitely emotionally, because there's nothing worse than realizing your own laziness created your downfall. In the end, I got my bin back. The nappies disappeared. Peace returned to the alley, and somewhere out there, a neighbor probably still gets nervous every time they see a bright blue garbage bag. Honestly, worth it. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button and subscribe for more perfectly satisfying Reddit revenge stories. And tell me in the comments, what's the pettiest but most justified revenge you have ever seen? Because sometimes karma doesn't need help. Sometimes it just needs evidence.